Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a 24-hour vlog of sorts. It won't actually last 24 hours because I truly value my sleep. But what I wanted to do today, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. You won't be watching this on St. Patrick's Day. So happy retro St. Patrick's Day. This is why I'm wearing green. Wearing my Shawn Mendes shirt, that is green. My Timbers hat. If you don't know who the Timbers are, they are an MLS soccer team that is here in Portland, Oregon. So the plans for today is to read books by Irish authors. I was perusing my shelves and I realized that I don't have too many on my shelves. I do have a couple of books by Tana because I really like her writing and I really like her detective stories, but I never really continued to read her books because I'm constantly reading new authors. So I could pick up another book by her. And I've also read from Oscar Wilde before. I've read one of his plays, The Importance of Being Ernest, and also his novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is, both of those are favorites for me. So then I started perusing my shelves and I found Hamet by Maggie, which I was really excited to read. Haven't got into it till this day. So this could be a contender. It's under 300 pages. I'm confident that I could finish it in a day. And then I have the winner of the Booker Prize, I believe from 2018. Yep, 2018. Milkman by Anna Burns. Ben tried to read this a couple of years ago and it's very slow moving. Oh, this is where he left off. He didn't finish. He left it at 157. From what I remember him saying, I think it was a little bit bleak and dry and he was just getting back into reading. So he really needed something that pulled him in a little bit more during that time. So he didn't finish it, but he did say he would like to go back and finish it one day. I don't know if I'm in the mood to read Milkman. So the last book that I thought I could potentially read is The Likeness by Tana. This is a continuation of a series, I believe, and I have read the first one. Yep, Dublin's Murder Squad. So I don't know. Or I could see if there's other books available through my library. My toxic trait is that I have books on my physical TBR that I could be reading, but instead I find other books to read and borrow from my library. So here's my thinking. I do eventually want to read these books, but I don't want to rush through them. And I really wanted to try to read as many books by Irish authors today as I can. So I'm potentially looking for books that are under 200 pages. And I know Keegan came out with a book last year, Small Things Like This, that I was really interested in reading. And I wonder if there's other books by her that might be available because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a hold on Small Things Like This. Then there was Emma Donoghue, who I think wrote Room and The Pull of the Stars. I'm also really interested in reading something by her. And I wonder if there's other books by her that are also short. And then there's another book by an Irish author, and I forgot his name, but he wrote the book Panenka, which is another book that I was really interested in. So what I'm thinking is I might browse through my library, see if any of these books are available. And if so, I'll go ahead and check them out and read them today. Once I do figure out which books I'm reading, I will come back and let you know. Let's see. Another thing that I really want to do today is look more into the origins of St. Patrick's Day. I realize that I know very little about St. Patrick's Day. I mean, other than like the stereotypical, wear green for luck and that there's a leprechaun at the end of the rainbow. But that doesn't really give you much history. Like, I don't know how the day came about. So I think I also want to do a little bit more research into Irish history and educate myself. I think that's reasonable. So yeah. I'll go ahead and peruse my library and come back and let you know which books I chose. So I have selected the books that I will be reading for this particular vlog. There are two that I will definitely be reading and then a third that I may or may not get to. I just love my library. They do such a wonderful job at keeping a variety of different authors and books. And this is how I found this one. It's great. I love it. So anyways, the first book that I'll be reading for this blog is actually by Keegan, who I spoke about earlier. She's a contemporary Irish author and she wrote Small Things Like This, which was either nominated for the Women's Prize for Fiction or the Booker Prize last year. So just like I expected, that book was not available. So I did find another piece of work by her that I was able to check out. And I'm not sure if this is a short story or a novella. It is under 100 pages, and the audiobook is about an hour and 30 minutes long, so it's very short. But that is going to be Foster by Claire Keegan. And as the titular name suggests, it is about a foster girl. The description on Goodreads says, a small girl is sent to live with foster parents on a farm in rural Ireland without knowing when she will return home. In the stranger's house, she finds the warmth and affection she has not known before and slowly begins to blossom in their care, and then a secret is revealed, and suddenly she realizes how fragile her situation is. I'm intrigued, so hopefully this is a hit. I still really want to read small things like this. I know that that's a book that is really popular right now. I already placed it on hold, so I will read it eventually sometime later this year, but we are starting off with Foster. The second book that I will be reading is Panenka. This is by Ronan Hession, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. And this is just short of 200 pages. It is 164 pages. It has a very pretty cover. It's blue and it has a man whose face is kind of distorted on it. I'm sure you've seen it around. There are a couple of people on BookTube that talk about it in the literary space. So this book was not available through my library. I did have to place a hold, but I couldn't help myself. So I did end up purchasing the Kindle version. There was a sale on it. It was like $4.99, which was great. And this is a book that I've been really wanting to read. So I will be reading it on my Kindle over the course of the day. Ta-da! His name was Joseph, but for years they called him Panenka, a name that was his sadness and his story. Panenka has spent 25 years living with the disastrous mistakes of his past, which have made him an exile in his hometown and cost him his dearest relationships. Now aged 50, Panenka begins to rebuild an improvised family life with his estranged daughter and her 7-year-old son. But at night, Panenka suffers crippling headaches that he calls his iron mask. Faced with losing everything, he meets Esther, a woman who has come to live in the town to escape her own disappointments. Together they find resonance in each other's experiences and learn new ways to let love into their broken lives. I feel like this is going to be a hard-hitting book, and I will probably most definitely cry. Yeah, I'm excited to read it. Let's see, what do I want to start with? I'll probably start with the audiobook since I am on my break and I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning. So I'll start it, make my way through it, and then read Panenka in the afternoon once I'm off of work. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Now, if I end up having additional time to read an extra book, which I don't think I will, but in the rare event that I do, I either want to go ahead and start Exciting Times by Noyce Dolan, or I do want to start Hamet by Maggie O'Farrell. And even if I don't finish it today, at least I started it and I can finish it throughout the month. So we'll see. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and check back in once I've made any significant progress. Hello, my doula peeps. So it is lunchtime. I get a 30-minute break from work and I'm working from home today. So I'm going to have some leftover sushi, make a coffee, and well, make a latte technically. Side note, one thing that bothers me, and it shouldn't bother me, let people do whatever they want, but it really bothers me when people are like, I'm going to make a coffee, and they make a latte. I'm like, coffee is like coffee, you know, it's black coffee. That's what coffee is. It's bean water. I don't want to sound pretentious, but it just slightly bothers me when people do that. When they say, I'm gonna go get a coffee, and it's a vanilla latte, or it's this very sugary drink with like a splash of espresso. But whatever. So I'll probably make a latte today, and then I'm going to have some leftover sushi. I just recently bought this and I want to try it out. I guess technically I'm not making a latte. I'm just adding creamer to my existing coffee. I usually drink it black and without sugar, or without creamer. So we'll see how it goes. And then this is what we're working with today. Some leftover sushi. It looks really yummy. The creamer is not terrible. It's pretty good actually. Slightly too much vanilla for my taste, but you can just dilute it with more coffee. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna add more coffee to it. But other than that, it's really good. Hello. So I am going on a brief walk. I'm on my break. So I'm gonna go on a brief walk and finish Foster by Claire Keegan. I'm actually already a little bit over 50% done, like 52% or something like that. It's a relatively short story. And so far, from what we can gather, we have our, someone's doing some sort of work. So I'm gonna wait until we pass them. Okay, here we go. We passed the construction. So from what I know so far about the book is that we're following our unnamed narrator. I don't know if they ever give her a name. She is a young child. We're not sure how old she is. At least I don't think we're ever given her age. But you can tell she's young because of the observations that she makes. Like, she points out on the road that there is a tree that's sad, and her dad's like, no, that's a willow. They look like that. So they're relatively young, and at the beginning of the novel, her dad is taking her to a relative's house in, I believe it was Wexford, somewhere in Ireland. I'm not familiar with the country. So she is being delivered to these relatives' houses. She's never met them before, and she doesn't really know what to expect. From what we know is that her mother is pregnant with another child, and she belongs to a relatively large family where they often share things. They don't have, enough water to bathe on their own, so they share their bath water. So she lives a pretty cramped life with the rest of her family, but now she's staying with this new family, and we don't know for how long. Her dad just left her and didn't say bye, didn't say, hey, I'll come back in a week. We don't know how long she's gonna be there. But it's the little things that really start to stand out to her, like how she could be wrong and be unafraid, and how she can have really hot water and take a bath and have it all to herself. Even gets some new clothes that they buy for her. And she helps out around the house, and she enjoys this. She enjoys the kindness that she's receiving from this new family, and a lot of it is very quotidian. So it's a very sparsely written short story. It's very descriptive in its setting, beautiful setting, and beautiful in the way that things are being described, even the food, but it's very sparse in its content. And even though that's the case, it feels, every word that she writes feels intentional and impactful, and there is such a level of emotional depth that you're getting from this story. There's also a lot that is left unsaid and for you to draw your own conclusions, and I really like that. Here's my update. I'm going to keep walking and potentially finish the book. Bye. Hello. So I am back from my walk. Wow, there's like hairs here. Oh my goodness. I need a, please ignore. Wow, I need a vacuum. Wow, okay, they're like bothering me. Why are they here? You know what? We're gonna have to deal with them. Okay, here we go. So I'm back from my walk. Hi, baby cat. And I finished Foster by Claire Keegan. I really enjoyed this short story. It was really, really, really good. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. There were several times where I had to play the audio back to understand what they were saying. Hello, excuse me, you're being rude. I did struggle a little bit with the narrator. They had a thick Irish accent, which is totally fine. I would just rewind. But that, along with, Irish dialect and some words in English that Americans don't use, made it difficult to understand some passages. So I'd have to stop, rewind to understand what the author was saying. And then after that, I'd have to research what the word meant, which I think detracted from the book, which is not the fault of the book, it's my fault. And I always love listening to other narrators. That way my brain can adjust to different dialects and different pronunciations because we all have an accent, So I still really like the audiobook. I did have to listen to it at 1x speed, which I pretty much normally do. It's either 1x speed, 125, or 1.5. I can't do any faster than that. My brain just doesn't process words that fast when they're being spoken to me or when I'm listening. But yeah, I really liked it. So I believe I gave you a brief synopsis about what this book was about. But just to wrap things up, there's this recurring theme coming back about secrets and silence. And I could tell that there were deeper meanings possibly to the political undergoings in Ireland at that time, which I couldn't truly pick up on because I don't know that much about that time period and about the politics of Ireland. So if you've read this and you're more familiar with it, I would love to hear your thoughts. But there were definitely themes of silence and about secrets. It's a deceptively simple story, but one that has a lot of It's a deceptively simple story, but one that has a lot of layers to it. And again, I personally couldn't understand all of the different layers because of some of the references, but it was still a very, very good story. I felt really sad by the end because eventually the girl is brought back to her family and she doesn't want to leave her new family. She loves being there. She felt nurtured. She felt like she could be herself. She didn't feel like she had to be filtered. Filtered is definitely the wrong word here, but she was definitely coming into herself, being more lively, more full, which is interesting too, I think, thinking about it in the context of what your family can provide at any given time, and also the emotional capacity that your parents have to give when you have multiple siblings. I think it's a very nuanced conversation on that regard, because the foster parents that she went to live with didn't have any kids, and so they can really dedicate all of their time to her, which is something that she felt she was missing. So yeah, it's a hit. I liked it. 4 stars. I'll definitely be picking up more books by Claire Keegan. And with that, I'm going to go on a small little break. I've been following the Hailey Bieber and Selena Gomez drama that was recently reignited. Quick update on Panenka. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it tonight, unfortunately. I'm about 30% in, and normally I would stay up, but my friend invited me to go to a winery with her. There's random shit everywhere, but my friend invited me to go to a winery with her tomorrow. She's gonna get here at 9:45 and it's already 10:30 p.m. So again, I value my sleep. So I'm gonna read maybe up to 11:30 and then see how far I get. So I'll probably get about halfway, which means I'll probably end up finishing tomorrow. But I don't want to rush through this book, or any of the books that I read. And I'm liking this book so far. So Panenka, what is this book about? I didn't realize that this book was going to be about soccer in a way, which is really funny because I started off the day with my Timbers MLS hat. So we're following this guy named Panenka, or Joseph. So we're following the perspective of Panenka, or Joseph. but we're also following the perspective of his daughter who is living with him. But then we also get to hear from these men that sort of gather at this local spot in this unnamed city and talk about life and things and stuff. And there is also a lot of talk around Seneca FC, which is a local soccer team there. And what we know so far is that Joseph or Panenka used to play soccer, and we do get some flashbacks to when he was younger and starting off. And we know that an event happened that sort of derailed his life and that he has a lot of regrets. But I haven't gotten to that event yet, so I'm not really sure what happened. At the same time, he's also having these like very intense face headaches, and he calls them his iron mask, and he has extreme pain all over his face, and he goes to see a doctor about this finally after not being able to withstand the pain for so long, and he gets diagnosed with something. So that is where we are right now. It's a really interesting way of telling this story because I feel like I'm very used to like a single narrative voice in literary fiction, or alternating chapters between past and present, or even just two different points of views. But it sort of feels like this town is coming alive just because we have insights into so many different perspectives, and I'm really enjoying that. A lot of the things that are happening in the book right now are very like day-to-day stuff. There's nothing exciting going on, and what I mean by that is like we don't have twists and turns or like fighting and drama. It's a story about this person, about his life, his regrets, and about the town that he lives in. And the author is painting a picture of that town and the circumstances of that town and the environment of that town, but also painting a picture of this guy's life. And I like it. I like it so far. So I'm gonna get ready for bed and then update you later. Hello. So I wanted to give you a quick update because I did end up finishing Panenka today. It wasn't quite the 24-hour readathon that I was looking for. So I ended up not finishing Panenka Friday. Saturday, one of my friends invited me to go wine tasting, which I had never gone to before in Oregon. And I thought, hey, it'd be fun. So I went, came back, and didn't feel like doing anything, probably because of all the wine that I drank. Then Sunday, Ben and I went out and did a couple of chores. It was like house cleaning day. And so I didn't completely finish it until Sunday night. The first 30% of it had me questioning whether I wanted to continue or not at some point because it was very slow moving, and at some point I felt myself wondering, what is this book about? But the last 70% of the book were totally worth it. I think at this point in time I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's a book about relationships, really, and specifically about this one man named Joseph who gets dubbed Panenka. So, for those of you who don't watch soccer, Panenka is a term that is referenced in soccer when there is a penalty shot and the person that is kicking ends up kicking the goal right in the center because they anticipate the goalie is going to dive either left or right for the ball based on how they're setting up. So this is something that he does, Joseph. He's a soccer player for Seneca FC in this unnamed town, I'm guessing somewhere in the UK, and the goalie doesn't dive. So he catches the ball, and Seneca basically loses this very monumental game towards their rival. And this particular event makes Joseph's life sort of spiral out of control. His marriage tanks, his relationships tank, and he doesn't really feel like he really has a purpose anymore. He ends up retiring early. We do get insights into his life leading up to that point, also decades later when his daughter is living with him and his grandson is living with him, when he meets a new potential of interest. I loved how we were able to get the history and insights into this one particular character, this one particular person, based on how everybody else views them. And I just found this way of building a character really refreshing because I feel like it's not done very often with American writers. Everything is very, individualistic. And in this scenario, this person is really shaped by the community around him. So found that really refreshing. There are so many things I highlighted. I read it on my Kindle, but I wanted to read one of the quotes to you just so that you can get an idea of the writing style. They walked through the part of town Panenka had lived in for many years, an area known as the Crucible, where a mix of strays, seasonal workers, and outsider communities lived, people dependent on the local authorities mostly. Over the years, much of the area had been scheduled for demolition, or urban regeneration as it was called. But there was always a new population of unwanted people who needed to be housed somewhere, anywhere, and the crucible served as a useful purpose as far as the town was concerned. It was sort of a spare room where all the problems were dumped with a view to sorting them out later or forgetting about them altogether. It was where the pavements crumbled, where blown street lamps went the longest without being fixed, where people used sheets as curtains, where grown men lived four to a room in bunk beds. For all its flaws, it was cheap and within walking distance of most places. Panenka had always liked the invisibility of living in the crucible, it being full of people from elsewhere who were too busy with their own precarious lives to notice him. That just, I think, really captures the writing of this book and how the author is able to build this perception of the town and of this person through very descriptive language. The author also uses a lot of metaphors. So if you're not really big on metaphors, this is probably not going to work out for you because they use a lot of them. But I liked it. I really like this book. It's one that I think will be sticking with me for a while, and I'm definitely going to pick up any books on their backlist if they have any, and if not, any book that they write in the future. So those were the two books that I ended up reading this past weekend. I really enjoyed them. The next video that you can expect from me is going to be a sit-down video, probably my mid-month wrap-up. Thanks for watching. See you later.